Travolting, covering the General's Daughter. Enjoy the episode.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Stu. Today is a momentous
Are you
occasion.
excited to talk about the movie we're about to talk about?
Well, this is less of a discussion and more of an investigation.
Is it now?
Yes.
What are we investigating?
This weekend we're investigating the General's Daughter.
Investigating the General's Daughter?
Yes.
Do you have family in the military, Jeff?
I do not.
I have a good number of family members in the military. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you this straight up for many of our audiences. If you have military background, or if you have family who have military background, and they or you watch this movie, you're going to find so many military inaccuracies. The way people salute, the way ceremonies are done, the way rankings work, the way the ranking badges are presented, the way that a base operation would normally work. There are so many things that are inaccurate regarding like how military this movie is.
Yes.
That I can tell. I know me, a non-military person, would watch this and be like, probably not really think about too much of those things.
Yeah.
But I could watch it and I could almost imagine, like I have a few cousins in the Air Force, and like I could just imagine them watching this and pointing out, like, nope, that's not how you do that. Nope, that's not how you do that. Because if you're in the military, for our audience here, if we have any military listeners here, which I know we do.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you for your service for our country. You guys love pointing out inaccuracies in military proceedings and movies. Don't tell me you don't, because you do. There's a secret love for doing that. Like Transformers, a lot of military stuff in that. A lot of inaccurate military.
That's the trend. Keep going. That's the military theme from the Transformers movies.
But they like doing it. I don't know if you've ever seen this, or if you've ever watched like a movie with military in it, that with a military person. But
I've not.
They have like a joy and a glee when they're like, "That's not how that would work."
Yeah,
that's not how
it's
that
so
would
drilled
work.
into their brains by literal drills.
Yeah,
that when they see it not accurate, like it just sticks out.
Yeah, right. So there's a lot of that in this movie for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not here to talk about military inaccuracies in this movie.
We're here to talk about general inaccuracies in this movie.
We're here to talk about the General's Daughter.
Yes, the 1999
Y2K.
Simon West joined.
Now, what is Simon West known for?
Simon West has done a few films.
He's done a few.
Con Air being probably his biggest success.
Yeah. Put the bunny
back in the box. The thing is, The General's Daughter is a very intense concept for a movie.
Yes, it is.
Like the whole idea of this movie is investigating misogyny and rape in the military.
Yeah.
Which is a recurring problem that still occurs nowadays.
Yeah.
And I'm not quite sure the guy who directed the Never Gonna Give You Up music video is the best choice for it.
You don't think so, Jeff?
I'm not sold that the guy who did Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley, the video that you've seen a million times, was the right choice for this subject matter.
If you had to put a director in 1999 attached to this movie.
Catherine Bigelow?
Oh,
I would generally speaking like a female director to explore a movie about misogyny
in the military. Yeah.
Instead of the directors of Con Air, Lara Croft Tomb Raider, and The Mechanic as his top three billings.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's if we seem a little unenthused to discuss this movie.
Yeah, well, it has a very serious topic and a very serious nature of the subject matter. But
the movie itself is so preposterous.
The movie is very whimsical. We're gonna talk about a scene later in the film. This is a scene when she in the locker room scene.
Yeah.
And like just the way it's kind of handled,
yes,
and presented, and the way it ends, the tone of that does not match the conversation they just had.
Two scenes in this movie have the same tone.
Right. Yeah.
And that is its biggest problem. Is I never like know what this movie's tonally going for.
Right.
Because it'll jump from like deep tragedy, like a gruesome murder scene, and then jump to the next scene, and it's like John Travolta being like, "Oh, so did you ever get married after we broke up?" And like, Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The general's daughter.
The general's daughter.
Yes.
Generally out of touch.
Yes. Generally not the best.
No.
Oh God.
So directed by Simon West.
Yes. Well, let's take a little trip to the context corner.
Let's go to the context corner.
As we do. So this is coming out, after Travolta's recent run of hits to flops that are still generally above water, more so than they aren't.
Yeah, he's been slowly trending more on the
cracks in his seams are showing, but he's still solid.
Because a Civil Action was critically okay.
Yeah, Civil Action critically okay did not do great at the box office.
Right, Thin Red Line critically amazing.
Yeah, did well,
but
he's not a big part in it.
He's not a big part in it.
But it's movies like Primary Colors,
not Mad City,
yeah,
Face Off,
yeah.
She's So Lovely. Bunch of the late 90s stuff. He's, doing all right at.
Yeah, he's at this point where he's in the Hollywood machine again, and he's not being punished for the flops, but he's also not really being elevated by the successes anymore. He's just kind of treading water at a continuous level.
Yeah.
In a way that is healthy, and it's where most actors kind of land, as they jump between some things that are good, some things that are bad, and then every now and again they have a great success, which Travolta's had roughly at this point 2 or 3 of. Maybe 4 since he came back with Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
And this, he's doing a mix of action movies and dramas at this point.
Yeah.
And he basically seems to kind of be alternating between the two when it comes to his leading vehicles.
Yeah.
He kind of did Broken Arrow, Phenomenon.
Michael.
Michael doesn't.
Well, Face Off.
Michael's a genre picture. So I would say more he alternates between genre and drama at this point. So he does Broken Arrow, Phenomenon, Michael.
She's So Lovely.
Face Off.
Mad
City. And then on and so forth and so forth. And this is his next genre picture in that. Because while this is a drama, it's also kind of an action movie? Question mark?
Yeah, well, here's something that I thought was we talk about the stereotypical movies of the 90s that every A-list star had to do.
Yeah.
The courtroom drama.
Yes.
A Civil Action. The military investigation movie.
Yes.
What was it? A Few Good Men?
A Few Good Men, or even Patriot Games, Clear and Present Danger.
Yeah. The General's Daughter.
And they're all movies that start with we gotta find this corruption in the military, and then by the end of it they're we've blown up the entire country of Colombia. That's pretty much what happens in Clear and Present Danger.
Right, yeah.
The Harrison Ford's we're gonna get these guys, and then they blow it up and he's the president's implicated. And then the movie ends.
Yeah. Military corrupt movies.
Yes.
This is The General's Daughter.
Yes.
For Travolta. News. The News is a Force for Evil movie.
Yeah,
Mad City.
He's hitting all the all the posts.
Yeah. The benchmarks.
All the benchmarks.
Yeah.
And then I'm just reading something about this one. I'll get to it later. But this is based on a book. A 1992 novel by Nelson DeMille, who wrote 2 sequels to this book. Starring the character of Paul Brenner, everyone's favorite army investigator.
Yeah. Paul Brenner.
It's prime airport reading material. Yeah. It's you pick it up at the Hudson newsstand, Terminal 3, and that's what you read on the flight.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's basically what these books are. But those books generally make great movies or competent movies because they're usually clean, lean, cut to the point, action forward, and you can make a pretty solid programmer out of them, which is how a lot of the programmers of the 90s came to be.
Yeah, wasn't Bourne that way too?
Bourne was a bit more intense, of a series of novels. But it's the things your Jack Reachers, where there's 25 of them, which is insane. Yeah. And the books, they cut to the point, they're clean, they're lean. Jack Reacher, great movie. I really like that movie. Have you seen Jack Reacher?
No.
You should watch Jack Reacher. It's a good movie.
Okay. Tom Cruise, right?
Yeah, Tom Cruise. Chris McQuarrie before he did the two most recent Mission Impossibles.
Interesting.
Fallout and Rogue Nation for those keeping up.
In the Mission Impossible cinematic universe.
In the Mission Impossible cinematic universe.
Yeah.
Yes. This movie, the book comes out. It's put very quickly into like production, turnaround, all that fun stuff. Travolta is picked as the lead. They looked at some other people, but Travolta's on a hot streak. He's a good choice for this. He's proved himself capable of handling like drama of this level with movies like A Civil Action, but then also being able to handle the action stuff of it. People associate him as a figure of authority from his roles in, like Broken Arrow, Face Off, etc.
Yeah.
And so he's able to segue into this. They almost cast John Cusack, but he was deemed too young. They wanted a slightly
older guy.
Older, not grizzled necessarily, but like someone with some clout to them.
If there's anything that does not describe Travolta's character in this movie, grizzled would be one of them. Paul Brenner in this movie is not grizzled.
He's having a great time in this movie.
Yeah,
not Travolta, like the character.
The character is having a great time in this movie.
Yeah, it's very strange.
It is very strange. Any more thoughts into the context corner?
That's basically the extent of the context corner.
Adapted from a novel.
Travolta's on his hot streak. I mean, this is our last movie before.
Before what, Jeff?
We have our Icarus.
Before what?
We have our Icarus moment.
Say it.
I'm not going to say the name, but we're going to have our Icarus moment next week, where he flies too close to the sun.
Would you say it's going to be a battle?
It's going to be a battlefield on Earth. But he's going to have his Icarus moment next week, and then that's when the water treading starts being a sinking situation.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
He's not keeping like a continuous ebb and flow. He's going up and down. And and we'll talk about this next week, but he's gonna start making the same mistakes soon that he was making in the 80s. And by same mistakes, I mean quite literally the exact same mistakes, down to the movies he is doing. Exact same choices. Yeah. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Because right now we're still basking in the 90s. This is our last 90s picture.
It is our last 90s
Yeah, we're out of the 90s after this. We are out of the Clinton administration. I mean, we still have 2 movies in the Clinton administration. But we're close to the Bush years.
Getting close to Election Day.
Yeah, we're getting close to Election Day. Gore v. Bush, 2000. 537 votes. Florida. Recount. Check it.
Thanks.
Supreme Court election.
Jeff, come on.
What?
Let's talk about the general's daughter. We had our.
I'm actively trying to not talk about the general's
Listen,
daughter.
we had our political episode on primary colors a couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. So we got that out of our system.
So, all right. So first thing in this movie. Let's just jump right into it. First thing in this movie. A symbol of where we're at in Travolta's career. He not only gets like first billing, he gets billing with himself on the screen.
Yeah.
Like, it's like the general's daughter. And then it starts listening to the cast. John Travolta. And like, as it says his name, he's in bed. He turns around and looks right at the camera. That's great. Yeah. It's a real movie star. Like,
where is he in bed in?
On his houseboat.
On a houseboat in a swamp in Georgia.
Yes, it is established he's in Georgia. He's a private first class Frank White, I think. That's who he's playing.
Or that's his alias.
That's his alias.
Yeah.
And we're set up that Travolta is he's a criminal investigative warrant officer. So he investigates crimes within the army.
Yeah.
And just keeping them within the confines of the army and not involving outside police or whatnot.
And it should be noted that John Travolta gets up for his routine where he's like going to the base.
Yeah.
And how does he talk the first way we hear him?
Oh, he's got one of them Georgia accent.
Georgia accent.
He's like, I don't know about that. He's kind of doing the Bill Clinton thing again.
Like, Daisy, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah.
And
it's a tad over the top.
Well, how can I help you? And
yes.
Very Southern.
He's immediately like, if this is his version of being in disguise, like he's like doing everything. He's got this big accent, like bright green army fatigues.
Yeah.
he's got this massive cigar that he's always chomping around on. He's like, yeah, I'm a sergeant in this military. It's so over the top.
Yeah, and he gets like a phone call from one of his contacts, and he immediately drops the accent.
Yes,
and you find out like, oh, well,
and it's like, oh, this guy's undercover. He's like,
undercover.
I've been having to do this dumb accent and chew on these cheap cigars.
Yeah. And it's during this when we get like cuts also to James Cromwell.
Yes, James Cromwell playing the titular general of this
The
movie.
general.
Yes.
And this movie is called The General's Daughter.
Yes.
James Cromwell is the general.
Yes.
In this movie, The General's Daughter.
Yes. And it's him, and he's pulling up to this base, and he's having a reception because he's retiring soon from the military.
Yeah.
And it's expected he'll be picked as the vice presidential candidate for one of the two parties. It never says who.
Oh, I missed that part.
No, it's they set up that he's gonna like, and that's part of the reason why he's trying to like be all shady in this movie is he doesn't want that to mess with his political
All
future.
the publicity to come out.
Yes.
With him. Yeah.
He's retiring, and like he's a very venerated figure. It's established he's very well respected within the military.
Got a lot of accolades and awards and medals and all that good stuff.
And like he gets a rapturous applause. He treats his soldiers well.
Yeah.
But during this scene, he like walks up and he stands at the thing and he turns around and like cuts to some of the faces in the room. And it's all like extras, except for James Woods.
Oh, yeah.
Who
James
is
Woods
in
in
the
this
room.
movie.
And he's giving the slimiest look ever. And I'm immediately like, less than a minute into this movie, I'm saying, all right, James Woods is involved in this somehow, right?
What was that opening song?
Oh.
You know what I'm talking
Yes.
about, right?
I know exactly what you're talking about. It's listed in here. Oh god, you're playing it. Oh yeah, this.
It's kind of a banger though. Like, you know what I mean? Then the Halo theme song popped up on my phone. Hold on, I'm gonna play it. I'm gonna have to cut this out.
No, just leave it in. Fair use criticism. I can't believe. This is where we're at in the show right now.
But like, can we talk? This is the opening song
yes
of the movie.
I was kind of at this point like, oh wait, is this movie gonna be good?
I was like kind of hitting it too.
Yeah.
I was like, but I actually kind of like. I don't know.
He's going through it.
I mean, it just does this same
Yes.
like little drum beat the entire time, but it's like, and it like cuts back and forth with this song and like Travolta like pulling up to like the base where he's about to do the investigation, and it's got Cromwell like in the, like the hall, and he's like, I respect all my soldiers. And I'm like, all right, let's go.
You're like, I'm fired up for the general's daughter.
Literally, like
It very quickly loses that energy.
Yes,
Because it does have it for about 5 minutes.
Great opening song.
Yeah, but we see James Woods. I was just like, this guy.
He's a bad guy.
You don't cast James Woods in your movie. And then have him in this scene giving that slimy look, unless he's involved somehow. Shocker. He's involved. Spoiler alert.
He's involved in various ways.
Yes.
In this movie.
But at this point, I wrote down in my notes, if this movie has a discount Michael Bay vibe going on.
Okay.
Like,
yeah.
This kind of has the aesthetics of like his early movies, like, you know, The Rock, Bad Boys 1 and 2.
Did you see Angelina Jolie Tomb Raider?
Yes.
Kind of similar
It's
vibes.
the same director, so.
Yeah, no, it's like I get a lot of that similar, like I would say like this is more tonally closer accurate to Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
Versus Con Air, very different tone.
Yes.
Because it's more consistent. It's a lot more like, I don't know, consistent's the best way I can put it for Con Air. Like, you know what the type of movie
you know
it is.
what movie put the bunny back in the ball.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's weird he does a Nick Cage on a Travolta movie back to back. Simon West.
Yeah, I know.
It's kind of fun.
Who knows?
But yeah, this just even the lighting and camera styles of this evoke an early Bay. Mm-hmm. Like, kind of has that glossy look that he patented.
Yeah.
That he then like went really glossy with later on, but like that early stage glossy.
Right.
But yeah, Travolta, he busts some fools trying to sell guns. Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. He's in
Stuart
like
just
this...
like had a 1,000-yard stare and seemed very lost for a second.
I'm not gonna lie. Like I glazed over in a lot of this movie. It's just so boring. Like
I mean, here's something: the U.S. Army refused to endorse or have anything to do with this film's production.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of these inaccuracies and
of course
come, because it's about rape in the military, and they don't want to acknowledge that that's even a thing.
Right. Which it is.
They're like, no problems. It's a great place.
Yeah. But yeah, he is in this like armory.
Yes.
There's like a guy who he's talking to. He's like, I don't know if he's like a terrorist or something.
He says he's a freedom fighter.
Yeah.
And Charles is like, I don't believe in no freedom fighters.
What if it was Castor Troy from Face Off?
What if it was Castor Troy and this was the origin story?
Oh God.
But no, there's a self-proclaimed freedom fighter who's trying to buy weapons,
like machine guns, rocket
from
launchers.
from another like
weapons dealer.
Yeah,
guy.
like a barracks guy.
Yeah, who like has access to these weapons, and Travolta is like the middleman.
Yeah,
undercover middleman.
Yeah,
who's trying to like foil all these plans.
Yeah, and so he's about to bust the guy, but then he's on his houseboat because he lives on a houseboat.
Yeah, he's back in his houseboat,
and the freedom fighter comes and like tries to break into his house and kill him.
Did we miss the when he's like driving his Jeep or car out of the base and he gets a flat tire, and that's when we see
the general's daughter.
The general's daughter.
Okay, I can't remember if that happens right before or right after.
I think it's
roughly the same time.
Before the ambush.
Okay.
I think it's right before the ambush.
Yeah, I mean, he's driving around with his massive cigar and his army Jeep.
It is before the ambush because he also like goes
he's still
to
in character.
He's in character. He goes to her office and like brings her like a basket or whatever, because he is talking to the cops. We're gonna get a little bit into the scene about what happens on the houseboat. He's talking to the cops when he gets a phone call about
her death.
Yes. So it is before.
But yeah, he meets the general's daughter, and she helps him put a spare tire on his car.
And like, let's talk about the general's daughter.
Yes.
First impression.
Elizabeth Campbell is the character's name.
Yeah, Elizabeth Campbell's the character's
Leslie
name.
Stephenson.
Who has done what?
She's mostly a model.
Yeah.
But she's been in this and some other random things. Looks like her other biggest like recruiter role is Jackie Ethel Joan, the woman of Camelot. She played Joan. I
love a lot of her other credits, such as in As Good as It Gets. She is credited as Cafe 24 waitress. On Glass.
Yeah, she's in Glass.
She is Woman on Train.
Oh! I know who she is in Glass.
The woman on the train.
She's the one from the opening scene of Unbreakable.
Oh, right.
Who he's talking to and trying to like you've seen
Unbreakable. She's plays it's labeled as Kelly.
She's the person who Bruce Will sits next to at the opening scene.
Yeah.
And starts talking to, and it's the show of his unfaithfulness to his wife, where he like, pulls the ring off and tries to see what she's doing when she gets back to Philly, and then she dies in the crash.
So, it's in our actress credits. It's Glass 2019.
Yes.
Then Alien Hunter 2003. Let me just read for you what Alien Hunter is about. An alien black box is found in the South Pole where a government agency is conducting botanical experiments. Alien Hunter.
Oh God, James Spader's in this.
This is the tagline. There is something out there. Which was directed by Ron Krauss, who had done movies like Puppies for Sale, Give Me Shelter, and A Mexica.
A Mexica. Yeah, a Mexica.
Yeah.
Alien. Look up to our audiences. Look up the poster for Alien Hunter now.
It is the most 2003 sci-fi knockoff movie. And it's got James Spader in it?
Radioactive and bizarre single.
Why the fuck does that have...
Roswell. He tries to investigate the signal and goes on to follow it, never to be seen again.
And I guess she's in Flubber as Sylvia? which I don't remember. What was Sylvia's role in that movie?
Look at how far we're going to not talk about the General Star right now. We're discussing Alien Hunter.
I'm talking about Flubber now.
Flubber?
With the Robin Williams masterpiece.
Flubber. Fight
me on that.
Flubber.
No, I'm looking up Leslie's, now focusing on her career as a sculptor, according to, wait, is she still with James Spader? No, of course not.
Audiences are loving the silence right now as you read the bio for Alien Hunter.
I'm gonna look up James Spader's bio and see if he's still married to Leslie.
All right.
This is important, guys.
This is important context.
Spouse,
the General's daughter,
Victoria Spader. So he's not still with Leslie Stephenson.
Ooh, yikes!
But she has a child with James Spader.
Well, good for them.
According to IMDb trivia, which maybe that's not the best.
Yeah, IMDb trivia which says Jack Nicholson is going to be in every single movie we're covering.
Well, she has 3. Leslie Stephenson. Listen, here's why we're focusing on Leslie. It's because she has nothing to do in this movie.
Yeah. She's the General's daughter. She's essentially the main character. She's the cipher for everything. Has nothing to do.
Has nothing to do. But to be dead.
Yeah, they give her nothing but to be brutalized.
I was like, to be really brutal about it, her job in this movie is to be killed and be raped.
Yes.
And that is the only job she's given in this
literally
movie.
like Laura Palmer from Twin Peaks without Twin Peaks' self-awareness as to what it's doing.
Yes.
Because Twin Peaks is a show about shows that just have like brutalized young women.
Yeah.
As their ciphers. This is the movie that Twin Peaks is critiquing.
Yeah. Right.
Because she just
nothing to do.
Nothing to do. Just be miserable.
And it brutalizes her reputation after she's dead. It
brutalizes her reputation so that we can make a movie about the honor of a guy in the military.
Yeah.
Who's so honorable to blow open this whole scheme.
So she has 3 trivia points.
This movie also has the craziest scheme ever in it. The ending of this is preposterous.
It is preposterous.
It's like a Saw movie and how complex like the scheme at the end of this is.
I don't know if I'd compare it to a Saw movie, but...
Have you seen the Saw movie?
I have seen the Saw movies, but it's... Yeah, I don't know.
There's like 3 different layers going on about what the murder is.
Can I read the 3 trivia points for Leslie Stephenson?
There's one of them that Jack Nicholson played her in a movie, I swear to God.
One is now focusing on a career as a sculptor. The second is gave birth to her first child, a son by James Spader on August 31st, 2008.
Good for them.
Engaged to James Spader, 2008. But that was as of 2008. Yeah. Something happened.
That's the end of it?
Something happened in between 2008 and... Oh, wait a second.
Wait a second. What is it?
He is still with Leslie Stephenson.
Okay, good for them.
Because his wife died in 2004.
Good for them. I mean, not good for them. Good for him.
No. So, like, he was married.
So she like just kind of got out of acting to be a family person.
So
good
yeah,
for her.
Leslie and James Spader are still together, I believe.
Yeah.
According to Wikipedia. Good for them.
Yeah, good for them.
They did a movie together.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, John Travolta meets the General's daughter, Elizabeth Campbell, and he has a flat tire, and he's like, "Well, howdy, ma'am," and oh, it's a captain, I see.
She's like, "I know how to make do a thing,"
and so he's like trying to change tires not having any luck.
Yes. Well, they get the spare on.
She gets the spare on.
She gets the spare on.
Yeah, because she's a rough and gruff girl.
Yeah, and he's trying to play coy and be like, oh, what are you doing tonight? And she gets out of the truck and she's wearing captain's uniform. It's like, oh, she's a captain. But he's kind of like, I'll stop by your office later and drop you off some flowers or something. Which he does the next day.
The next day, yeah. There's a little flirtatiousness between the two of them.
It's established she works in the PsyOps department, psychological operations.
And she says, quote, in the movie, we basically fuck with other people's minds. Which is foreshadowing.
Yes. Because this whole movie is just like 7 different people messing with each other's minds. It's like Fincher's The Game if the game made less sense.
Oh, okay.
And was out of its league.
What was that movie about the cube that people were trapped inside?
The Cube? I think it's just called The Cube.
Yeah, this movie is like that.
Stuart's like, what's that movie about the cube? I'm like, it's The Cube.
That's like when someone would say, what's that Hilary Swank movie about a sphere?
The Sphere.
It's that movie.
Hey, Stuart, what's that movie about the general's daughter?
What? No. Hold on. I'm not done with this bit. What's that movie where they go into the Earth's core?
Journey to the Center of the Earth.
No. It's called The Core.
The Core.
And you know who it also has?
Who?
Hillary Swank.
All right, we're done with this.
I think we need to start
already off the rails.
Swanking it. That's our next podcast.
Swanking it.
Swanking it.
Oh God. I just watched Logan Lucky again yesterday, and she's good in that, even if her role is very unnecessary.
Great actress.
And we're also going to talk about Logan Lucky in our next episode.
Are we?
We're recording today. Yes, we are, because that movie is what that movie should be.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Gotcha. Copy
Yes.
that. Okay.
Okay.
So we goes to her office.
Yes, he goes to her office and he drops off the flowers.
They're not flowers.
It's something.
They're like bathtub accessories.
Oh yeah, and she's like, "Yeah, you're playing to the sexism and misogyny of the military with me." That's what she says to him. She's like, "Yeah, you just immediately played to the stereotype of giving a woman all this stuff."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, just leave it, and I'll be back later." And then he goes back to his houseboat.
And then
he gets attacked.
He gets attacked by the weapons guy,
freedom
the
fighter.
freedom fighter.
He takes out the freedom fighter in this very Michael Bay action scene, like Discount Bay. A lot of like blue lights like swinging by and harsh oranges blasting back at him.
The guy's a machine gun. Travolta has a pistol.
Indiana Jones is the guy into a propeller blade.
Yeah, he like literally.
He shoves his head into a boat propeller because they're on a bayou.
Yeah,
and he's like, and then he dies.
And he dies. Yeah,
and then they arrest the guy who was dealing the weapons, Mark Boone Jr. in the most Mark Boone Jr. role yet.
What else is Mark Boone Jr. about?
Mark Boone Jr. is like a human piece of salami. like
a human piece of salami. What?
Like, you've seen Batman Begins.
Yeah.
You know, like Flash, like Gordon's like partner in that.
Oh,
like the big guy, like the big beard, Mark Boone Jr.
It's like, where are the drugs shipping in from?
Yeah, and he is ripping off a falafel stand, and like he's like, "What? The kids don't like falafel."
It's like, I got kids to feed.
Yeah, he's like, "Don't like falafel." He's in The Mandalorian as well. He's in one episode of that.
That's right.
But
he
always plays the same like slimy dude. He always looks like he just walked out of a bargain pizza shop in Brooklyn. Like. It looks like he just had a rough night out, woke up in a dumpster, walked into the $1 pizza store,
and then some producer said, "I want you to be in my movie."
Covered in grease, always covered in grease.
Yeah, pretty much.
Mark Boone Jr. gets arrested, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I mean, fitting. He probably should be there.
And Travolta is talking to the cops.
Yeah, and the cop's like, "What's your name?" He's like, "Frank White,"
and he gives them his alias name.
Yeah, and then he gets a phone call. And that's when he's like told that Mark Boone Jr. has been picked up, and he drops the accent and the name, and he's like, "No, my name is actually Robert Brenner or Paul Brenner."
Yeah, and I'm undercover or whatever. Yeah. I'm a warrant officer.
And he pretty much flips off the local cop and then takes away off because he has something else to investigate.
Yeah. And where does he go to?
He goes to the training site.
Yeah, training site on base.
Yes, where they found a body.
And it is
the body of the general's daughter. Yes. They say the title because like he's there, and then a rape investigator in the army comes over.
Yeah. So I think it's important to note the details of said murder scene.
Yeah.
So
well, first the other rape investigator is Sarah Sunhill, played by Madeline Stowe. Who pops up and I saw her in Last of the Mohicans recently. But she pops up in a lot of like smaller roles around this time.
Yeah.
She's mostly not working too much. She was in the show Revenge for a few seasons, looks like. But she's not a huge star. But this is kind of the you get the idea that this was an attempt to kind of make her a big movie star.
Yeah.
But then she segues more into TV later on.
Right. Yeah.
But her character is also given very short shrift in this.
Yeah.
She's like Travolta's ex. They keep mentioning it, but they never like solidify what happened.
No,
what it is.
I was really confused on what that was all about too.
She's like Travolta's ex, but she's also another warrant officer in the military who investigates like allegations of rape and sexual abuse within the military.
Yeah.
And she's there as well. investigating the
Yeah.
general's daughter.
And
they get the from what they can tell, she was raped, murdered, and tied up, like with tent posts stretching her out.
Yeah.
Travolta like puts back there and he's like, it's the general's daughter. And then the roll credits.
Like, oh God, I didn't know it was that. Yeah. So she and I have some questions about this, as we're gonna find out in the end. But yes, they say she was raped, tortured, and killed, and she's like tied to like these posts on the ground, bound. She's fully nude, like on the ground, and she has like rope and panties tied around her neck, thinking that she was strangled.
Yes.
So, and yeah, Travolta recognized her from when he was like hitting on her.
Yeah.
And they have that discussion of like, oh, like, you know who she is, right? And also randomly throughout this investigation, like they play like the morning song.
Yeah.
And they have to stand up and do like,
but they do it over the body.
yeah, they do it over the body while there's a body over there.
Yeah. There's like a dead body in front of them. They're like, and they all like salute.
Yeah.
It's so strange. I guess it's symbolic of like what the movie's trying to accomplish.
Yes.
Which is these people who are putting the army and like
the honor of the military,
over morality and ethics.
Yeah.
But it just kind of comes off as weird because this movie doesn't have a grasp on what it's trying to do.
No, of course not.
So it also has to be noted that a base patrolman named Bill Kent is the one who secures the crime scene because he'll be important later.
And this Bill Kent guy is what's this? Timothy Hutton.
Timothy Hutton, yes.
Who is primarily known for his role as Nathan Ford in Leverage.
Leverage?
That's his like primary.
Is that a TV show?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you know what? He was in Haunting of Hill House. That's right. He was
Was he the dad in that?
No, he was. Yes, he was the dad.
Okay.
He's like the older version of the dad in Haunting at Hill House.
Because Haunting at Hill House...
He was good in that.
I've not seen it. But,
it's great. Great show. You should watch it. But I think his biggest role he's done TV and probably movie-wise is his role in Leverage. I think that was like his kickoff, his true kickoff moment.
Like, it's just kind of a star moment.
Yeah. So, yeah, Timothy Hutton is Kent. Who
has secured the scene.
Yeah, he's an MP officer.
Yes.
Knows Paul Brenner pretty well.
Yes.
They have a history.
They do. He's like, yeah, Brenner, you're back. And I'm like, why was this guy undercover at this base if everyone seems to recognize him?
Was he undercover at all for this particular investigation, though?
But he was undercover for the first investigation.
Right.
And my question is, was Travolta in full undercover disguise going around this base? And everyone's like, oh, this fucking guy thinks we don't know who he is.
Well, and like, what was the point of setting him up as an undercover person if he's not going to go undercover for this investigation?
Yeah.
Like, why not just make him a cop? Why not just make him an MP officer? But no, it's like the first like opening like 15 minutes, he's like an undercover guy. And they have this undercover B plot story about the weapons thing.
Travolta's walking around like Frank Drebin in Naked Gun, where he has like the really fake like the soul patch. And everyone's like, yeah, it's John. He's like, no, it's me, Frank White.
It's like, get the fuck out of here, Paul Brenner. But he doesn't go undercover for this investigation.
No. He and Sarah just team up to solve it.
Yeah. Also, something that I had to pick on the scene is the time of day.
Yes.
That scene takes place in is very confusing.
Yes.
Because the time they get to the dead body, it's night.
Yes.
And then, like, 2 minutes, like the entire scene may be like 5 minutes or less or whatever. But like a minute later, it's like blue hour. And then when the morning ceremony song plays, they turn around and it cuts. The sun's behind them, like rising.
I guess they establish it because they say she died at like 3 a.m.
Yeah, and they're getting there at like the morning hours.
Yeah, they're getting there like 5 or 6.
But like the transition happens like really
very fast
because it's like night, blue, sunrise.
And then they're at the general's house.
Oh, and then they're driving away because they're like driving away and it's like a front hood mount camera.
Yeah.
and it cuts to them driving and it's daylight. It's not even like sunrise anymore, or morning for that matter. It's just like broad daylight. I'm like, wait.
It's the Dark Knight Rises thing where Batman drives into a tunnel and it becomes night afterward.
Well,
they had to get to the day stuff so they could get to the general's house, which they go to.
Yeah.
Just trying to get us through this plot right now because I want to get to the meat of this plot, which is how complex and preposterous the scheme is.
Yeah. So they get to the general's house, and James Cromwell.
And he's already aware that his daughter's dead. And he's like, you find these guys. And Travolta tells this story about how he's like, I joined up when I was 18. I was in Vietnam.
Yeah, he does a whole thing where he's like,
and he's like, you told me the Red Sox won the game, and that gave me the energy to go through. And I'm like, good for you, Paul Brenner, if the Red Sox winning a game got you through Vietnam.
Great.
Yes.
So
they're told they have a 36-hour time limit
because then the FBI comes in, and then it becomes
they have 36 hours to kind of solve this before the FBI shows up,
and then it becomes a civilian case, and the press will be all over it.
Yeah, and he says, "I don't want to besmirch my daughter," but we later learn he doesn't want to besmirch himself.
So, yeah, they immediately search her home. Mm-hmm. And what do they find in her home, Jeff?
Well, at first they find nothing of value. They're like, wow, she seems like a very clean-cut person.
A lot of clothes are all very organized.
They find a hidden latch behind an army poster.
And what's inside?
A BDSM dungeon.
It's a sex dungeon.
Yes.
And
not just like the term sex dungeon. It is a sex dungeon.
There's handcuffs.
Yeah, there's handcuffs, leather, like dildos,
whips.
Yes.
And all the stuff. Outfits.
And so it's like, oh, okay. And there's tapes of her dominating other men.
She's like very dominatrix like.
Yeah. And it's later established that like this is just her way of working through her trauma of being raped.
Yeah.
But Travolta's like, wow, this is crazy. And he's like, I'm going to hide the tapes so that we can pull them out at the opportune moment. And then what happens? Someone whacks him in the side of the head and steals the tapes and runs off.
Yeah. Someone at the house.
A guy in a hood.
Yeah.
And he runs off.
And the rape investigator's with him at this point, too.
Yes.
Sarah, yeah. And again, to go back to the convolution of their relationship, like that they're exes, but also we're not totally sure what their history is.
We're not entirely sure. They get like attacked and lose their main piece of evidence, and they're just like, oh, yeah, remember that time we broke up once? That was crazy.
Yeah. So then they go back to the body site, and the body's still there?
Yes.
After how many hours or days?
Well, they're told at one point, there's 3 ways to do this. There's the right way, the wrong way, and the army way. And Charles like, I'm going to do the army way. And so far, this has been a bungled investigation. So I'm not too sure about this. Like, they get them, the body's still there, like you said. And then what happens? He turns around, and he sees something billowing in the wind on a rooftop. And he finds all of her clothes with fingerprints on them.
Yeah.
The army has been at this place combing for like 24 hours at this point. And they did not see a trash bag on a 1-story.
Because he doesn't climb to like a 2-story thing. He
climbs on a dumpster onto a roof.
Yeah. There are helicopters around, by the way.
And there's helicopters flying around, and none of them saw this. It took this long to find this trash bag.
And I'm still upset at the fact that the body's still there. Yeah. Like, it
looks decaying.
Yeah, they did not have
I wrote in my thing, tone is very odd here.
I wrote down, the movie is ... boring ... Yeah.
Yeah.
So they interview potential witnesses and or suspects.
Yes, and they go to James Woods' house.
Yes. He was...
his office.
Because he was working on the same psychological...
He was her boss.
Yes, he was her boss. They were working on the same like department, psychological warfare thing together.
Mm-hmm. And let me tell you, though, I really like this next scene. The James Woods scene.
Oh, with John Travolta.
That is a really good scene.
I can see why.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of indifferent about it. Are you talking about the scene when like they have this like coy interrogation?
Yeah, like they come in, and obviously James Woods runs the psychology department, so he's understands psychology and is very smart about it.
Yeah.
And so, and he teaches like how to resist like torture methods and whatnot.
Yeah.
So he's seeing everything Travolta's doing. And so it's this interrogation scene that's also a self-deconstruction of itself. And like all the dialogue is about the dialogue that was just said previous and how it's working both the characters and the audience.
Because he'll say like, so how well did you know her? And he says, you mean did I fuck her? And he's like, no, I meant to say how well did you know her? It's like, well, it starts with how well did I know her? And then it's like, I know her all right. It's like, did you spend any time outside of work together? Did you have any relationship? Do you have any intimate relationship?
And he's like, the trick you're playing with me right now is trying to get me to like you. So I'll talk to you. And the trick I'm playing right now is getting you to like me. Am I succeeding? And so it's I just really enjoy the deconstruction element of this scene. How it's working both for the characters but also for the audience and kind of, you know, showing you the tricks of the screenwriting that they're using.
I thought it was all right. I mean, there are lots of movies, TV shows, and scenes like that where the detective is talking to somebody who has a hand on the ball in the court.
Yeah.
Where they're like, don't like.
Usually these just don't go this deep into it.
Yeah.
Like usually it's just someone who's like, oh, you're just trying to get me to confess or something like that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I like it more where it's like the person who's being interrogated just plays the same mind games back around to the other guy.
I like scenes in movies where they essentially critique the movie that you're watching. And this character's like, essentially James Woods is like almost reading the screenplay of this and being like, here's how you're trying to manipulate the audience right now. And then none of the rest of the movie does anything about like that.
No.
And James Woods is very good in that scene. He's kind of a crazy guy now, but I do appreciate some good James Woods 90s content.
What's James Woods doing now?
Oh, God.
Let's
not talk about James Woods.
No, I want to talk about James Woods. What's James Woods doing?
I mean, Stuart's looking it up. He's looking at James Woods.
I'm looking up James Woods right now. He was in Vampires, 1998. He was Hades and Hercules.
I mean, all I'm going to say is that his Wikipedia has sections called legal issues, politics, and Twitter.
Oh.
I don't mean like little things like whole subheadings or subsections.
Yeah, he hasn't really been in anything like good in a while.
Just don't.
But I like him in this movie.
Yeah, he's good in this movie. Are you reading about James Woods right now?
I'm just.
Yeah, James Woods, like, thankfully his character dies in this movie. So if they ever made a sequel, we do not have to have current day James Woods pop up in it.
Nominated for 2 Oscars. Wow.
Yeah.
Huh. I'm just
He is. Let's just say he's described members of the Democratic Party as Satanists.
Back up. What?
Let's just say that James Woods is kind of a QAnon person. not like
really,
not like fully, but like kind of, you know.
When you say, okay, this is a whole other conversation.
Let's not get into James Woods right now.
Okay, all right, fine. I don't know any of this stuff, so I'm
kind of a crazy guy. But he's good as this, and he's good in this, and he's good as Hades and Hercules. So we'll leave it at that.
Yeah. So then the Sarah,
yes,
the rape investigator,
she goes back to the crime scene.
To the crime scene.
While Travolta's interviewing James Woods, and she gets attacked.
Yeah, by a guy
with a ring,
who has a very identifying object on him.
A ring,
which I like. That comes back later, but. Yeah, and he just like threatens her and says like, "Tell Brenner."
Something fun that happened is like I get to this scene and like it comes right after the Woods scene, and I'm like, "Oh, that was a good scene. I wish like they just stuck with that a little longer." She gets attacked. She meets up with Travolta again. The like forensic investigators like, "Oh yeah, I found out some fingerprints on the general's daughter's dog tags." Charles like, whose? And he's like, James Woods. And then he goes back to James Woods' house, and we get another scene exactly like the previous one. And I'm like, yeah, hooting and hollering.
Yeah, it's a lot shorter, though, because then James Wood has a lawyer who comes in.
Yes.
And the lawyer has like 3 seconds of screen time because then Travolta arrests him.
Yes.
Like for conspiracy to cover up murder or whatever it is.
And James Woods at one point is like, why are you in the army? Travolta is because of father issues, and Travolta says, "My father was a drunk, a gambler, and a womanizer. I worshipped him."
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then he arrests James Woods.
Yes.
They find the guy that attacked Sarah.
Yes.
I don't know what his relationship was to the crime, though, because he wasn't the one that committed the crime.
Mm-hmm.
Like he wasn't.
They find this guy who attacked her.
Yeah.
And they pretty much like get him to confess.
Well, the motive was that she was sleeping with like
a lot of guys.
A lot of the guys in the general's unit.
Yes. As a way to like work her way up the ladder, or just like get back at her father. I think that's the idea.
Yeah, getting back at her father.
And so they now have a piece of the puzzle, and so they go back to the prison to investigate James Woods again. But he's gone.
He's gone.
Kent was like, "Yeah, I released him. There was no reason to keep him here." And it's like, "Oh, Kent. Oh, Kent." So they go back to James Woods' house. And this is when I think they're laying it on a little too thick at this.
Tuna.
They're laying it on a little thick at this point, if you ask me. They start blasting O Fortuna. And I think there is a good detail in this scene.
Yeah.
I like that like they can't get into Woods' house. They just hear O Fortuna blasting from within, and the cat comes up to the window, and then it paws at it, and there's blood.
And
that's
like,
a good way
We're going in.
And so they bust open the door.
I go in. Oh, Fortuna.
Yeah. And they find James Woods dead on the couch, holding a gun with a bullet hole in his head.
He shot himself.
Established that he had shot himself.
Yeah.
Self-inflicted, apparently. Brenner's immediately like, yeah, he didn't do this. Like, this is not him. And so then this guy, we got to talk about Fowler.
Oh, yeah. God damn it.
He's a big part in the finale.
No, I mean,
he is the goofball that really mucks this whole thing up. So it's the general's like assistant. Fowler comes and like, yes, Moore, James Woods' character, is dead. He obviously did it and felt guilty and shot himself. We close this investigation now. And Troll's like, no, that's not. We do not. And he's like, do it for the general. Do it for the army. It's like, no. He's like, you are entering a very dangerous path. It's like, who is this guy? Why is he threatening our boy John?
I still don't know.
So Brenner, like, they decide they're gonna. Oh, they find some paperwork in his car. Like, it's just sitting on the seat. And it's all of her medical records they couldn't get access to. And they're like, wow, this shows that she was raped at West Point.
Yeah.
So they go to West Point, fly to New York, and they meet with her counselor from her time at West Point. He's like, yeah, she got attacked on a training exercise and was tied up exactly the same way that she was this time and raped. Yeah. And then that was it was the cause of all her trauma, and her father covered it up. Because
they talked to Fowler about it then.
Yeah, they talked to him in a little bit.
Yeah.
And what the counselor's like, basically the army covered it up because if that had gone public, it would have destroyed West Point and the army's reputation and set women in the military back many years.
Yeah.
Instead of, sending men in the military back, because like we're going to punish a poor woman for being raped.
Right.
And so they come back from West Point. This is when the movie gets like really sweaty.
Right.
So they come back and they're like, well, this was the exact same attack that happened then.
It was like recreated.
Yes. So they find one of the cadets who was involved in the first attack.
Okay. I need to talk about this scene.
Yes.
This kind of goes with like the whimsical tone.
Yeah, this scene's very strange.
This scene, it's like you're about to interrogate one of the 5, because there were 5 of them who raped her at West Point brutally.
Yeah.
And the way it happens is it's Sarah who comes into this locker room and sees this guy and says like, hey, what can I do you for, miss? And then she shows him her badge. Then all the other guys walk away, and it's just him and her.
Mm-hmm.
And so she starts talking to him about Elizabeth Campbell and about their relationship and all that. And then eventually gets to where she says, well, we know about the rape that happened at West Point. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then she drops an evidence bag of panties by him. It's like, what are those? It's like, those look like panties to me. And he's like, yeah, you know, it's a great thing about DNA.
Yeah, we can detect.
It
stays forever.
It stays there forever.
New technology.
And then he's like, I swear, like, I tried to stop it, and it's like, it was horrible, and like, I didn't want it to happen. And he confesses to her, and he's like, great, one of the officers will be in contact with you soon. And then she walks, but like, wait, what? And then she dumps like the panties in the trash can. She's like, wait, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, those, I bought those like an hour ago. And then she walks away, and it's just like, what? Wait a minute, like, I'm sorry, but you just found like a rapist in a locker room,
and this whole scene is like kind of comical.
It's a very comical, like, battle of the wits, like, comedic scene.
And this is the inherent problem of this movie, is that they hired an action-oriented male director to direct this film that needs to come from a woman's perspective. You can even still have Travolta as the lead, but like, there needs to be a woman's perspective telling this story from behind the camera, and there is not. And it very clearly comes through in this movie. Yeah.
I mean, it bumped me a lot, where I'm just like, oh, like...
This movie is a guy being like, isn't rape so awful? And it's like, yes. But you know what? You don't have to live in fear of it.
Right. And you obviously don't...
Understand it.
Understand or share any of, like, the consequences or worries or stakes involved in the subject matter.
He seems more interested in, like, recreating the rape scenes than like telling the story about how bad they are. Like, he's like, isn't this awful and gruesome, and we're gonna like 30 camera angles and a lot of effects for this rape scene. It's like, oh my god.
Like, it was a very big budget flashback rape scene that you probably didn't need.
I don't think it's a little gross.
I mean, like,
I'd say more than a little.
There's something to be said for, like, you know, like, would a woman director like recreate a rape scene if the intention was to like show
shock
the audience and show the gruesome nature of it? And how would they do that differently?
The difference that needs to happen is there needs to be more pathos for the woman. Like, we don't get get any personality for Elizabeth Campbell.
No, we don't. And you know who's the final face we see in that rape scene?
The guy.
Yes. Because he looks down on her like he feels bad.
And he's guilty about it.
Right. And that's who we should be caring about in that scene.
I was like,
and that's an issue.
Yes,
that's a problem.
Big issue.
Yeah. So
they, with all this information, they like kind of figure out what happened was she had James Woods help her recreate her rape scene so that her dad would come and see what he covered up.
So like because she like strips naked and like,
and James Woods like,
ties her up.
And then she calls her dad and says, come to this place. I need to see you.
Well, and this is another thing that I struggled. So like they said in the initial, when she was dead, that she was raped, tortured. And
but they find no evidence of rape.
Oh, okay. I missed that part.
They established like there's no like tearing or like semen or anything like that.
Okay. I missed that part then. Because I thought like, wait, how was that then?
Yeah. They established that there was no rape. It was just that she was tied up and strangled. Yes.
Yeah. So we kind of missed it, but not really. But there was like that bit where they talked to Fowler about the whole situation, and Fowler tells her that the general came to visit his daughter in the hospital, and the only words he said to her, it's like, you need to just forget about it.
Yeah, forget about it.
Just let it go. Like, this is bigger than you.
Yeah. So they confront the general and Fowler, or Travolta does.
Yeah.
And this is when the movie descends to a new level of like preposterous chaos.
Yeah.
It is established. So this whole scheme, they were trying to find out who killed her. The scheme laid out is she had James Woods tie her up, then called her father and said, come to this place, see what you covered up. He comes. He leaves her there tied up.
Yeah.
Drives off.
Because but just that little quick scene, like he pulls up, sees her. They have this confrontation where she's like, you see what you covered up and you see what you did to me. And then he's like, what happened to you? And then he just leaves her there to die.
And then Travolta's like, all right, you didn't kill her. Then who did? And Fowler's like, when I got there, she was dead. And they're like, wait, you were there?
Yeah, Fowler was there.
And he's like, yes, I went after an hour after the general and I saw her body. And I thought the general had done it, so I covered it up. And it's established, this fucking idiot, this guy, instead of just asking his boss, did you kill your daughter, assumes that he did, creates this massive cover-up, including orchestrating the guy who attacked Travolta and stole the tapes, the people who attacked Sarah at the scene, like killing Moore, I think. Like, he orchestrated this whole cover-up off a crime that didn't even happen. And Travolta and the general are like, you think he did it? And the guy's like, I thought that's what I was covering up.
He's like, Fowler, come on, no.
What are you doing? This goofball, this clown, this whole covers up this crime, causes this whole movie to occur in something that could have been solved very quickly.
Yeah. Because who did we find out actually did kill
Bill
her?
Kent, the only other guy who was there.
And we know he was there because there was a third car there.
Yes.
And
they find out that he was there.
Yeah.
He was the first one to respond or something like that because he was there all night.
Right.
And then they're like, well, where is he right now? He's like, oh, he's with Sarah. They went back to the crime scene.
And he's like, oh, no.
And so, like, this movie's already preposterous. Like, that is such an insane turn of events.
Yeah.
Travolta rushes to the crime scene.
Gets there.
And Bill Kent's there with Sarah.
Yeah. And
what does Kent say?
Well, he confesses.
He confesses, but then he's like, goes full Jigsaw. And he's like, I have buried landmines all around us on this site. You have to escape without setting them off.
And he's like, Sarah, like, just backtrack.
Like, you, Travolta, you are safe now. She is not. She must find her way out.
So then she, like, slowly backs her way.
And you know what? Travolta just grabs her and runs. They don't step on any landmines.
And he steps
Count
forward.
steps on a landmine. It's one of the ones that, like, shoots up. I forget what they call it. Was it a party popper or something like that?
I don't know.
It shoots up and then
massive explosion.
A massive explosion. His rag doll goes like flying, like does like 3 flips. It flies away.
Yeah.
This movie is over the top absurd at this point.
Yeah.
He dies, and then
Travolta and
goes to the funeral.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he goes up to the general, and the general's like, thank you for solving all this. I'll give you a letter of recommendation and a gold star. And Travolta's like, no, I'm implicating you in this.
He says, I'm gonna write.
This goes all the way to the president.
It's like, I'm gonna write you up for a court martial.
Yes.
And he says, like, you try to under Article Section 35, where you try to cover up a crime, or you, I don't know, committed a conspiracy to a crime or something like that. And so
he has the general court-martialed, and it succeeds.
And then there's like an epilogue.
Yeah.
Where, like, as if like the events of this movie were like actually real. Mm. Where it's like the general was court-martialed and stripped of all of his titles, and he, secluded himself to like solitary.
Did not get to be the vice president.
Yeah, no. John Travolta stayed as a warrant officer.
And then it ends with a quote from
they say like
who is the quote from? The Joint Chief of Staff. And it says like there's 200,000 women serving the military, and there's more every day.
Yeah. And there's
That's
like
so weird.
And there are more and more jobs that women will be able to and will eventually hold.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of like the impeding nature of like more women are coming into the military, and they're going to hold more jobs, and they're going to be more like assimilated into the military. Like it's a fact of nature.
Yeah.
And it says in a sense like we got to like solve this problem before this happens. Like I don't know, but it is.
It's very strange.
Yeah, it was very strange.
This whole movie is very strange. They went into this with the best intentions and absolutely bungled it.
Well, where have we felt that hurt before?
Many times.
Many times in many John Travolta movies.
Yes.
So that's the film.
Yeah, that's the general's daughter.
Do you have any post?
So here's the thing about this movie. It's a hit.
Really? Wait, what?
So this movie has a budget of around $60 million. It makes
60 million?
It makes 150.
What?
This is a sizable hit at the time.
Wow.
Makes more than a Civil Action. Makes 103 domestic, 150 worldwide.
Bullshit.
Gets very negative reviews, has a 22% on Rotten Tomatoes. Of pretty much everyone saying it's so over the top and does not treat its subject matter with care.
Yeah.
Which, yes.
100%.
But it's a hit, and it's a sign of Travolta's power at this point that people like seeing him in these authority action roles.
Yeah.
We've kind of seen that people aren't as segued into him as a dramatic star.
Yeah.
But they like him in these action movies. And like Travolta in a military cap is a sell somehow.
Yeah.
And yeah. It's a hit. I can't believe it's crazy to say. But after this, Simon West goes on to Lara Croft Tomb Raider.
Sorry, I'm just playing the opening song again to get me jacked up again.
I mean, oh god, Stuart's really getting hit up on that.
It's a boss ass opening
Stuart,
song.
I have a question for you.
Ask away, Jeff.
How'd you feel about the hair?
Welcome to the hair ranking. Okay, the hair. I honestly don't remember much of the hair.
Stuart's very hastily looking at pictures of the hair in this movie.
I am. So the hair is pretty. I mean, it's one of the normal hair dues that we've covered a lot. So, and I went on.
We have some fun hairs coming up, though.
We do. In 2 weeks. Well, next week we got a fun hair one.
Yes.
And the week after, actually.
Yeah, we have a change in pace.
And the week after, Battlefield Earth, the episode after that's going to be an interesting one too. It's different. It's different. It's not crazy, but it's different.
Yes, and well, I'll take different at this point.
I will take different as well. So, pull it. Let's see the hair ranking.
It's coming up.
Let's see what it is.
All right, where are we putting this guy? Where are we putting this general's daughter? All right, where are we putting it?
Put it below She's So Lovely, above the Thin Red Line.
Above the Thin Red Line.
Yeah.
Is that just because that's where my cursor was already landed?
Kinda low key.
Oh God.
What's below Thin Red Line?
Urban Cowboy.
I need to see the whole list.
Okay,
We've done. Oh Jesus Christ.
Yeah, our friend Martin's that currently near picking up the rear.
Where is it?
It's right here.
Oh
because
man.
It's animated.
Because it's animated hair. It's not even his hair. You made me do it. You made me do it.
All right, so you feel good about that?
Yeah, I feel decent about that.
Maybe I'll publish this list soon so people can see it.
Oh man. We're across the halfway mark, right?
I think with this episode, this and our friend Martin were the official halfway point for our show.
So maybe
we audience, play some confetti noises. This is the halfway point of Travolting.
This is the halfway point of the podcast.
Yes.
Well, maybe you should post this list like for the halfway mark.
I'll post it on the halfway point so people can catch up.
Yeah, and see like where we're at with their hair ranking. You can't argue with me. Let's see what the top 5 is right now.
Top 5?
Yeah.
All right, top 5 is Staying Alive.
Carrie, Grease, Saturday Night Fever, Pulp Fiction.
Yes.
It doesn't get any better than those 5.
It doesn't get any better than that.
How can you argue with me on that?
I can't. I'm not.
I mean,
won't.
I can see someone saying Pulp Fiction shouldn't be up there because it's not sexy hair, but to remind the audience that the criteria isn't always sexiness related. Sometimes it's like story related.
Yeah, story related.
And the relation to John Travolta's character and his hair is immaculate.
Yes.
Immaculate.
The reason we've been tracking the hair is because it's an important part of his storytelling, is what hair he uses in his movies.
Well, I will say there's a big fucking large chunk of his movies where the hair doesn't matter to the storytelling.
And it's because in his real life, he kind of had settled into that hairstyle as his new hairstyle. But like, and at this point, all these movies are about him being confident.
Yeah, and it's
again,
also
finally.
Like for me, and for me, I'll say, like the hair is just such a I can't.
You can't.
I can't.
You can't think of the word?
I can't focus anymore.
Okay.
Sorry. I think I'm just like getting tired of talking about this movie.
Yeah, I'm looking at a picture of Mark Boone Jr. right now. Human salami.
Great.
But yeah, that's The General's Daughter.
Do you have any final thoughts, Jeff?
Not a great movie. Glad we don't have to talk about it again. This is kind of the white man's burden of sex relations. Or like gender relations.
Yeah.
And that it's totally missing the point. This movie was edited after test screenings because they didn't think Travolta's character was heroic enough.
Really?
So they added him being more heroic at the end, because that's definitely what this movie needed, was more of the guys being heroic.
Right. Like Sarah, the rape investigator, doesn't.
She gets all the women get such short shrift in this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talked like for a great length about Elizabeth Campbell, her name Stephenson.
Mm-hmm.
What was it? Lucy Stephenson or
Leslie Stephenson.
Leslie Stephenson. Like the fact that she gets like maybe 15 lines in this entire movie, and that's all in service of a man hitting on her.
Yeah, and like
Roger
Ebert said about this movie that it's well made, credible performances. He pointed out the death scene is so unnecessarily graphic and gruesome that by the end he felt sort of unclean, which is, I think, kind of what we talked about our problem with this movie being. So what we've talked about is
the death scene.
Yes, with her like rape and death scenes.
Oh yeah,
so they were just there for like shock value instead of character detail.
Yeah, absolutely.
This movie. Anyway, I think we're done talking about this movie.
I am. I'm done talking
I'm done talking about this movie. Thank you, folks, for listening to our episode on The General's Daughter. Tune in next week for our episode on the one and only, one of the key movies of this podcast, Battlefield Earth. That's right, folks. You, me, Stuart, and Turl are taking it on next week in the adaptation of L. Ron Hubbard's Battlefield Earth.
Will we have a guest star on that episode?
Possibly.
Who knows?
We'll find out.
Calling you out.
Yeah, calling him out. Make sure to rate, review, subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. As a reminder, we're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. And now, before I say the rest of this, to take you out with the rest of the episode, enjoy this song directed by the director of this movie. You can find us at Travolting Pod on Twitter or Instagram for updates and fun stuff. Pop into our Reddit, r/Travolting. Email any comments or questions to travoltingpodcast@gmail.com. Find me on Twitter at Jeff W. Sweeney.
Find me on Instagram at Stuart Elmore. Why are we playing this song, Jeff?
Because Simon West directed the music video. Special thanks to Rebecca Johnson for our graphic design and Michael Van Bodegum Smith for the theme music that is not taking you out right now.
I don't
thanks
understand why we're doing
Rick
this right
Astley
now.
for the music that is taking you out right now.
No, this is not.
Never gonna
this is
give
not
you
something.
love.
No, I don't think this is. No. This,